I know this episode is probably not the lightest of episodes, but I think that when it comes to life and money, sometimes there are these hard conversations that you have to think about.
Yeah.
And when it comes to life insurance, you have to think about how would this money be used? Like you were asking me, how would someone use that money? For my case, if I were the one to die, then that would give you a chance to take off of work for maybe a year.
Yeah.
To go through your grieving process, to spend time with the kids, to take whatever you needed to kind of regroup and to figure out the next steps.
Let's make green together. Let's make green together. Let's make green together. Let's make green together.
What's up, guys? Welcome to Black and Brown Make Green. I'm Natasha.
And I'm Damian.
And I have been having something that's weighing on my heart heavily for the last couple of weeks. And it's this idea about life insurance. About a month or so ago, I got information that one of my young cousins was diagnosed with cancer. And it just reminded me of the situation when my mom was diagnosed with cancer. And I think I've talked about this a little bit on here, but for those of you who don't know, my mom was diagnosed with cancer when she was 30 years old. And I would have been 6, I believe, and my sister would have been 1. My brother would have been like 9 at the time. So we were all relatively young when it happened. And with my mom's cancer, she was given 6 months to live. And gratefully, she was able to get some experimental treatments that allowed her to live for over 20 years past that date. But had she not survived, it probably would have been very hard for my dad, much harder for my dad.
Yeah.
And I know that there was no life insurance on her, so there wouldn't have been any help that we had gotten outside of what my family had, which was not very much at that time, to support the family.
Right.
And my mom hadn't worked enough hours to receive disability or Social Security or any of those benefits either. So there literally would have been nothing.
Yeah.
And so when I found out that my cousin was diagnosed with cancer, it really made me think about the importance of sharing about life insurance, because it could happen to you.
Yeah.
And it being a health situation that you don't expect could happen to you, and you just never know. And so I think that considering life insurance, it should be something that is a big consideration, especially if you have children, especially if you have people who depend on your income.
Yeah. And it's a little bit weird because I feel like the time that you should really consider life insurance is when you're young and healthy, which is really when you don't need it. Like you don't think you need it, at least, right? But that's probably the time when you should be looking into it. So let me ask you this, Natasha. What kinds of life insurance policies are there? Because there's different kinds.
So there's the two main types of life insurance is whole life insurance policies and term life insurance policies. The whole life insurance are ones that are going to cover you for your entire life. You pay for it on a monthly basis, or you may be able to pay for it on a yearly basis, but you will be able to keep that insurance for the entirety of your life.
Yeah.
Typically, that whole life insurance is more expensive. And then whole life insurance also bills something called cash value, meaning the money that you put in, it builds up a cash that you can take out at some point,
right,
if needed, and depending on the rules of how it's set up. But that's the whole life insurance. Normally much more expensive than term life.
Okay.
Term life is the one that's much more accessible to people, and term meaning it's going to last for a certain term. 10 years, 15 years, 20 years. 20 years is what I see is most common that people tend to get, but sometimes there may be even longer terms available than that. And like a 20-year term is normally a pretty good length of time to have a life insurance cover you for 20 years. So if you were to get it when you're 30 years old, you pay for it every year for the 20 years. And then by the time you turn 50, then you would no longer have that term life insurance, unless it was one that adjusted into for you to be able to continue to pay on that insurance.
Yeah.
But the cost might go up after that 20 years.
Right. Yeah. So it's good to understand the differences. It's good to know that you do have options. And it's also good to plan for what it means, right? Because if you do get the term life insurance, then it does end at some point, right? So then beyond that, you have to also formulate your plan.
Yeah. So hopefully with the term life insurance, by the end of that time, you've built up savings to be able to do that. But I wanted to go back to something you said. You said that you should really be considering life insurance when you're young and you're healthy.
Okay. Yeah.
And I think that's so true. I remember I was training to be a financial advisor back when I was in my mid-20s. And the first step in this particular firm that I was training with was to sell life insurance. Mm-hmm. And I remember having a hard time being able to communicate why someone who was healthy, who didn't have kids, who didn't have a wife or a spouse or a husband spouse, that why they would need life insurance at that time. Like, why not wait until you had the reason to have it? And in my older age now, I know it's because you can get that life insurance for so much cheaper when you are younger and healthier than when you wait until you're 35.
Yeah.
And you have the kids and you have the family and all of that stuff. So if you get it when you're 25, it's going to be way cheaper. And maybe you'll be able to get that longer term of 30 years that's going to last you until you're 55 versus waiting until you're older and you can only get something that's shorter term or something that's much more expensive than had you gotten it earlier.
Yeah, that's a good point, because I also didn't recognize the value of life insurance for a long time. I think it was even after I had kids, which, for better or for worse, that's just how it played out. Mm-hmm. And if I would have considered it when I was, in my 20s, in my early 20s, then, like you said, I likely would have gotten a better deal.
Mm-hmm. But also, you likely would have waved someone off had they said you need to get life insurance. I mean, even with me starting to learn about life insurance, I didn't train very long with this financial advising route that I was going down. So even with me being exposed to it that short period of time, no, that didn't make me get life insurance at the time.
Yeah,
we didn't get life insurance until Isaiah was maybe 2 years old. So it was after we had our first child that we even took the step to get the life insurance.
Yeah. If you had to, or if you could, would you go back and rethink that decision? Prior to you making the decision, go back to your mid-20s. Would you think about it, consider it more?
Yeah, I think I definitely would. And I think I definitely should have considered it more. I mean, just thinking about my mom's situation, my mom was 30 years old when she was diagnosed with cancer.
Yeah.
I was 30 years old when I had my first son. And I waited until after that time to get life insurance. And fortunately for me, I have been healthy, but it could have happened to me.
Yeah.
It could have happened to me when I was 30. So why didn't I go and get it when I was 25?
Yeah.
Why didn't my brother was killed before he reached the age of 25?
Yeah.
So again, why didn't I go and get it when I was 25?
Yeah.
There were things that have happened in my life that really should have prompted me more so, but I wasn't thinking in those terms of it could happen to me, honestly.
Yeah.
I was just thinking, oh, well, I don't need that. Why would I need that? You're not thinking long term. Mm-hmm. And I think that's now, yes, I would definitely consider it because I can see the long term. Like if I wait until I'm 35, okay, now I'm paying more.
Yeah.
Or now I'm 35 and I've been diagnosed with this sickness and I can't get life insurance. So for me, I definitely would consider it more so and hopefully opt into it if I could go back in time.
So then tell me this. You said that you were training with this firm and you couldn't really justify the reasoning behind life insurance to young people. Mm-hmm. Tell me this. Pretend I'm somebody that you're selling to or pitching to, and tell me this. What can I do with life insurance? Like, what is it good for?
First of all, I don't sell life insurance. I don't pitch life insurance.
Yeah, I'm just saying, just explain to me.
But what is life insurance good for? Yeah. Well, first off, if you have kids, you already know what it's good for. It is to provide for your kids when you are gone. It is to provide for them for however long that money can take care of their needs. It could go towards daycare. If your kid is in daycare, it can go towards schooling costs, clothing costs, food costs. I mean, all the things that it costs to take care of kids. If you don't have kids, but you have a partner, it could go towards paying the bills.
Yeah.
If you are working now and your partner is working now and you're both contributing, then that's going to be a big hit. That could be a big hit to your partner if something happened to you. And so it can go towards those things as well. Or if you help out with your parents. I know a lot of people in this generation that we are in are supporting their parents. And so if you support your parents, then that life insurance can go towards them so that if you're gone, they will have something that hopefully they can depend on for some amount of time. So, those are a couple of the different ways that life insurance can be used. I'm sure there are so many more that it could be applied to, but I mean, those are a few of them.
The one that I was thinking of is if for partners, you said for partners, right?
Mm-hmm.
But like to clarify, for partners, if one of the partners dies, there's likely going to be a period of grieving that follows.
Mm-hmm.
And what that could mean is, like taking a break from work, paying for, any causes that go along with death, right?
Therapy.
There's a lot of causes. Therapy. There's a lot of things that you may not expect and that it could be useful and helpful, and it likely would be useful and helpful for. And, when you're young and you are thinking, I just don't want that extra expense. I don't want to pay an additional X amount for something that may or may not happen. Like, to me, those are the things that I never really considered.
And then also funeral costs.
Funeral costs. Yeah, there's a lot of things that go along with death.
I mean, if you are choosing a casket, caskets can be $5,000-$6,000 and even more.
Yeah.
So the funeral cost alone, the life insurance could go towards that, the burial and all of that. Someone has to fund that. And if you're not leaving some cash behind, that life insurance policy could be helpful so that your family doesn't have to do a fish fry or raise money or come out of their own pockets if they have it in order to pay for that. So also burial costs is what life insurance could cover too.
Yeah. So like any insurance, this is one of those ones where it's one of those things that you don't want to consider, you don't want to have to reach into, but it's one of those that you should factor in, at least consider it heavily, to factor into your personal financial situation. And that way you're ready, you take it and you factor it in, and then it's a justified expense because you consider it as a valuable asset in your personal financial situation.
Yeah. Yeah, I would definitely say look into term life insurance because that's probably going to be the cheapest. But I know I was talking to my dad recently, and he has a whole life insurance policy that he's had for many, many years now. And he pays, what did he say it was? $50 a month, I think it is. So, which is $600 a year, which is very cheap for a whole life insurance policy for the amount that he has on his life insurance compared to, our term life insurance. I think yours it used to be $50 a month. The term life policy that you have.
Yeah.
But you were able to readjust yours to get it for a little bit cheaper. But let's talk about our policies that we have, how much we have, and what type of policies that we have.
Okay. Yeah. Maybe you can remind me because I've forgotten.
So we both have term life insurance policies. Mine is a 20-year policy, and yours is a 20-year policy as well. I have $500,000 on me and $1 million policy on you.
Mm-hmm.
And so those policies will last for 20 years from the original date that we got them. Mine is, and I can't remember the term for it, but mine is one that converts. So like after the 20 years, I can still have the policy. The first couple of years, it'll be just a little bit more than the cost I'm paying right now. But after those first couple of years, beyond 20 years, so if maybe 21 to 25 years, the policy isn't going to cost that much more. But beyond that, it's going to go up to like thousands of dollars. So at that point, I'll stop paying for
It
it.
shoots up. I was surprised by how fast it shoots up and the cost of it. They really want you out of
Yeah.
the door beyond that 20 years.
Like my policy is $225 per year, something around that amount for a $500,000 policy. And when it converts later in life, it'll go up to like $3,000 a year. So $225 to $3,000. So it won't be worth it at that point. But that's just to give you an idea of how much it is for me. And I think yours is around $425 or $450. I can't remember the exact numbers.
That sounds right. I think it's actually $460 something.
Yeah. And then we pay once a year for ours. So that allows us to get a discount too. But you could also pay monthly. And the monthly price, had we gone the monthly route, would have been like $20 something for me. I don't remember exactly what it have been for you. But it was reasonable amounts.
Yeah. And that just gives us a little bit of, that gives us a little bit of like mental comfort, and to know that each other is taken care of in the case of something bad happening.
Yeah. Oh, I don't want to make this sound like a downer, but it's just so necessary to talk about this.
Yeah, insurance is important. Like it's not something that you want to consider, because you have to consider the worst case scenarios, and it's hard, right? Like it's hard to do that mental exercise of, well, what is the worst thing that could happen to me if something happens to you, right? Like what are the ramifications? What could even happen to you that's bad? And that's not a situation that I like to consider, right? I like to keep everything in the positive light, but that's just not always reality.
Mm-hmm.
So with that, you need to really think about these things and consider them thoroughly.
And I think it's hard to think about adding another expense to your monthly expenses when you may feel like, my budget is packed.
Yeah.
Like, how am I supposed to fit in life insurance? But I think you can think about it from a standpoint of one of those necessary things like health insurance. Yeah, of course you're going to have health insurance.
Yeah.
Car insurance. Of course you're going to have car insurance. So why wouldn't you have life insurance to take care of your family once you are gone, or to take care of those expenses once you are gone? Why wouldn't you have life insurance too?
Yeah. It's not like when you buy something from Best Buy and they try to offer you the insurance policy, on your printer or on your monitor or something like that. This is a serious thing, and you could benefit from it greatly. So I think it's really worth considering.
Yeah.
If you don't have it.
Yeah, definitely something to look into. Definitely something to consider. But I know this episode is probably not the lightest of episodes, but I think that when it comes to life and money, sometimes there are these hard conversations that you have to think about.
Yeah.
And when it comes to life insurance, you have to think about, how would this money be used? Like you were asking me, how would someone use that money? For my case, if I were the one to die, then that would give you a chance to take off of work for maybe a year.
Yeah.
To go through your grieving process, to spend time with the kids, to take whatever you needed to kind of regroup and to figure out the next steps, and to add in extra care for the kids if you needed it.
Yeah.
To add in extra help around the house cleaning or food preparation. All these things that I do are things that would still need to be done once I'm gone.
Yeah.
Or in the case of you dying, that money, the income would be gone if you were to die, because you are the primary provider for the family. So definitely thinking about your own situation, you can start to think through this idea of, okay, why do I need this insurance money? How would this insurance money likely be used? Mm-hmm. And how much is a good amount for me and my family?
Yeah.
And $500,000 may be too much. It may be more than enough. And you don't need a $500,000 policy. Even a $20,000 policy is better than nothing to help your family to ease that burden of transition from one phase of life to the next phase.
Yeah, and really that's all it's about, right? Just considering what that transition could look like. And it's good to acknowledge the work that your partner does, even the hidden work. You have to look maybe a little bit deeper, pull the covers away, and really look at what they do and how they augment your life and what they contribute. And then consider like what that's worth to you in terms of having a disastrous situation presented to you and having to recover from that, and how to even approach that.
Yeah, because imagine if your partner had to go back to work in 3 days.
Yeah,
after something happening.
And this is, like when you say that, I've known people that have done that.
Yeah,
had to do that. They've had to do that.
Mm-hmm.
And that's tough, man. That's just so tough.
Yeah, I remember when my brother was killed, and I was in one of my next to last semester of college, and the first couple of days I still went to class. I went to class that Monday, that Tuesday, and that Wednesday morning I woke up and I was like, I can't do it. And I think that same day or the next day I drove home, and I stayed home with my family for like a week and a half before I went back to school. And that's pretty quickly to get back into things, a week and a half for me. But I also wasn't working, and I wasn't having to provide for someone. Think from the standpoint of you having to provide for the family.
Yeah.
I don't remember the amount of time my dad took off of work when that happened. But I mean, it was devastating when my brother was killed. It's such an unexpected thing when that happens. And it was hard for my family. I remember for my mom and my dad, seeing them through their grieving process of how hard it was for even a year after my brother was killed.
Yeah.
And so having that burden lifted of money stress,
yeah,
would be so helpful.
Yeah, and that's really important. The money stress on top of everything else, every other possible emotion that you could feel for a year. A year.
Yeah, for at least a year. It was at least a year that, you could visibly see the grief in them.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously grief is a process that goes on for years and years for many people. So it's not like, oh, after a year you're good. There's still work to be done over time. But yeah, just thinking about money stress on top of going through the grieving process, that's something that I would not want anyone to experience.
Yeah. So go get life insurance if you need it.
Yeah, I would definitely say do it. Even if you're 20, 25, this is a good time to do it.
Right. Start
with even $10,000, $20,000 of coverage. I know that my parents had about $20,000, $25,000 on my brother for life insurance when he died. So there was money to help pay for his funeral expenses and things like that. So I think it's definitely useful to have something even when you're young.
Yeah.
All right. If you enjoyed this episode, please share it with a friend. Join us for the next one, and let's make green together.
Let's make green.